Oh my God. Hi, YouTube. Hello, everybody. I was just saying I had a blueberry eruption. Oh God, it's still on. Look, it's still on the edge of the damn thing. My blueberry smoothie erupted all over the kitchen and made a huge mess, including all over my clothing. I'm trying to be like so good. I bought I got spinach. I added some carrots. I was being so good, and then all right, let me get let me get TikTok going. Kind of wild news happening today on the Israel front or Iran front. Hello. All right, live. 1 second here. That'll be good enough. Live goal. Blackberry or a blueberry. Exactly. Blackberry or a blueberry. Too funny. All right, 1 second here. Sorry. All right. Come on. Find something here. Something here. We'll do like those. All right. Going live. There we go. Jeez. Oh, microphone might be good on TikTok too. What the hell? What the hell? Let's do our TikTok microphone. Let's do our TikTok microphone. All right, TikTok microphone. There we go. Hello, TikTok. How we doing? Oh my God, what a day. What a freaking day. Anyway, hello all. I know, taco strikes again. Having a smoothie today. I was telling everybody on the other services, my smoothie kind of exploded all over the kitchen, and it did it 5 minutes ago. I was ready to go live, made the smoothie. I was like, oh, I can have a smoothie. And then all over me, all over the kitchen. The dog was having a field day because there's blueberry smoothie. So then I'm like in my head going, is there anything in the smoothie she can't eat? And I'm going, okay, blueberries. I know she can eat blueberries, so she should be okay. Carrots she loves. I was like, oh my God. Oh, hey, Flying Medic. Thank you. Anyway, hello, guys. I'm going to have a little more of my smoothie and then we'll get rolling. So kind of crazy day today. Like late breaking news, Trump may have caved entirely on Iran. What a surprise. What a surprise. Trump may have caved. Surprise. Trump may have gone full taco, according to the Times of London, which is very reputable. Where are my glasses? I need to do a quick, just pull up for 1 second here and see if I'm the only person who's going, taco. Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. Looking here. Anyway, welcome, guys. We'll look at this in a second. I'm John Aravosis. Good to see you all. We're going to be reporting on the latest with Israel and Iran today. Sorry, Ukraine news people, but this story's bigger. I will be covering Ukraine again, but this story is kind of huge, so can only do so much at once. But it's not clear that Trump chickened out, but it looks like Trump might have just chickened out. Taco might have struck again. My smoothie. But we'll get to that in a minute. Actually, that'll be our top story. We'll also jump in right now. So welcome, guys. I'm John Aravosis. I report from Washington, D.C. We talk about the latest news from Ukraine. But today, we're going to be talking about what's going on, you. Hello. The dog is a little. We had bad thunderstorms here an hour ago, so the dog is still in panic mode. Nope, she's all right. Just a little panicky. But we're going to be talking about Ukraine. No, we're not. We're going to be talking about Israel and Iran. My smoothie just exploded all over my kitchen. Literally, I was making it, and I'm like, I'm going to sit down, start the show, have my smoothie. I'll be happy. I don't even know what happened. It went flying across the kitchen, all over my clothes, all over the floor. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I had to run in and change. Meanwhile, the dog is licking up the entire floor. So I've got to I've got to relax and do the show. So welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about Israel and Iran. There is some late breaking news. Very interesting. Please do Keep the gifts coming in. I do this for a living. Your gifts pay the bills, so thank you. Also, it's Thursday, so I should remind you, Saturday morning is our show we do for the paid monthly subscribers. So please join us Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Exactly. Take a breath. Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. I do a show just for the paid subscribers. So obviously, we'll be talking about this, among other things. So the latest news is, according to the Times of London, well, two different things. White House has a press briefing today. At the press briefing, she says the following, Caroline Leavitt, Trump's spokesperson. Based on the fact that there's, quoting Trump, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place. Okay, first of all, let me just stop a second here. Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place. There's a substantial chance of a negotiation that may not take place? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is, I mean, a substantial chance that it may take place, and there's also a substantial chance that it may not take place. That isn't possible. Either there's a substantial chance that it will take place, or there's a substantial chance that it won't take place. There's no substantial chance that it may or may not take place. But that's what the White House spokesperson said today, Caroline. So based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, Trump will, he says, I will make my decision whether or not to go to bomb Iran within the next 2 weeks. As of today, he's putting off the decision for 2 weeks because there may be negotiations. The Times of London dug a little deeper. Times of London, very good paper. Oh, my neck is messed up. Thank you, WC. I literally threw this shirt on at like 2 minutes after the hour because my other shirt was covered in purple. So thank you. So the Times of London dug a little deeper. Listen to why Trump is now saying he may delay for 2 weeks, making a decision on whether to bomb Iran. This is funny. I say Iran, but whenever I say Iran, Siri doesn't understand me. So I've had to start saying Iran, or Siri doesn't understand what I'm saying. So I've started to actually say Iran, and it's driving me bonkers because I don't say Iran, I say Iran. So if you hear me say Iran, it's because the stupid Siri is starting to retrain me how to speak. So listen to this from the Times of London. I'm quoting this. President Trump has stepped back from bombing Iran, giving Tehran up to 2 weeks to negotiate an end to the conflict with Israel. Trump is looking for an off-ramp after advisors became concerned at Iran's ability to hit U.S. bases around the Middle East and kill American troops in retaliation for any U.S. military intervention. Trump just figured out today that Iran might retaliate, probably will retaliate, and if they retaliate, they will hit U.S. troops in Middle East. Okay, first of all, I have a degree in this stuff from Georgetown. So to me, it's rather obvious what I just read. I'm going to guess that even those of you who don't do foreign policy for a living are not like, how many of you are surprised that I'm telling you, right? Iran might just retaliate if we bomb them. Show of hands, how many of you didn't think of that already? Donald Trump just figured it out today. I'm going to guess 0% of you didn't know that Iran would retaliate, okay? So that's the first thing. Second of all, he just figured out that the retaliation would be against U.S. military bases in the Middle East. That's literally the only retaliation, not the only, but that's the retaliation we've all been expecting. First of all, Iran has already been hitting U.S. military bases via their proxies, via other terrorist groups, like for years now. The number one thing everyone has talked about is if we hit Iran, they will go after U.S. bases. So the Times of London says Trump just figured out that Iran's going to hit us back and that they're going to go after U.S. military, and he freaked out today as a result. Okay, let me go on. So Trump's looking for an off-ramp now. Trump's been threatening to blow up Iran for days now. He called for unconditional surrender. He talked about bombing their leader, Khamenei, right? Now he's looking for an off-ramp because he just figured out that Iran might retaliate. Listen to this. On Wednesday, Tehran was able to wreak considerable damage against targets in Israel, including by using hypersonic missiles to evade Israel's Arrow interceptor system. Okay, here's the problem with this, okay? I have no problem if Trump decides not to bomb Iran because it's in the U.S. national interest, right? Every decision this man makes should be in the U.S. national interest. We go into Iran or we don't go into Iran because it benefits America. That's the way it works. That's the way every country works, okay? This is an obvious point, but it's an important point. You go in or you don't go in based on how it does or doesn't help your country. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's selfish, but it's how it works, right? You don't want a president who threatens to attack another country and gives an ultimatum. Trump's ultimatum was, you will cave, you will agree to all of my terms, or I will bomb you. That was Trump's ultimatum. You do not want to make that threat and then back off for any other reason than you refuse to negotiate. Because the threat was, if you don't negotiate, I'm bombing you. You really don't want to back off if the paper reports that you were scared. And that's what they're reporting. He got scared. And that's why the Times of London is saying Trump is backing off. That is dangerous as hell, because you know who's looking? Not just Vladimir Putin, but Xi Jinping in China is watching this. And I guarantee you he's reading this and he's putting it in the back of his head and going, Donald Trump threatens military action, but then he gets scared. As long as his troops get threatened, he'll get scared. This is so freaking dangerous, which means if this happens, if this is the reason Trump backs off, China could be more likely to attack Taiwan. That's what is. So, like, generally speaking, it's not a bad thing if Trump decides military action isn't necessary. We all hope military action isn't necessary, but you don't back off of military action because you're chicken and because your staff leaks the fact publicly that you're chicken. Because then, good luck. Good luck in terms of anything you do in the future on foreign policy. You don't taco. Exactly. You get the nuance I'm getting at, right? Like, it's okay if we don't bomb Iran. That's okay. That's good, right? I would argue that's great. If you have a good reason, you've got to have a good reason to bomb them or a good reason not to bomb them, right? You don't make your decision based on the fact that you're chicken and you're afraid. And like I said, he just figured this out. He just figured out. I've got light coming in, but of course it is. It should be okay. The light should be okay. He just figured out that Iran was going to retaliate against American troops in the Middle East. Like, dude, seriously? Now, here's the other thing. There's two other things going on. Guess who showed up at the White House today? Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a far-right MAGA activist. He was in the Trump White House the first time around. He is very smart. I mean, I would call him an intellectual. He's an intellectual, but he's a MAGA activist. And Bannon was dead set against Trump going into bombing Iran. Bannon has not been in good stead with Trump. Bannon has, just that. He doesn't go to the White House. He doesn't do any of this stuff. Bannon gets invited to the White House today, and he goes to the meetings they're having to talk about Iran, and that's when Trump changes his mind. So, Bannon is incredibly dangerous. I mean, he's his own special thing. But and I guarantee you, by the way, the fear of U.S. troops getting killed isn't, let's assume that's true. So the Times of London, I believe they're a good paper. I don't think Donald Trump is afraid of U.S. troops getting killed simply because he cares about U.S. troops. Most presidents, that would be enough. They would say, okay, how many troops are we going to lose? Right. And then they'd have to figure out in their head, is it worth it? Right. Every military operation comes with risks. And D-Day, right? D-Day in Normandy, World War II. We knew we were going to lose thousands of men, but we deemed it necessary and worth the cost, right? So every military operation, there can be costs. And just because there's costs doesn't mean you don't do it. Okay. But I'm trying to think for this. Donald Trump, I think, did not suddenly realize U.S. troops were going to get hurt. Thank you, Popular. Oh, is this? Thank you, Marsha. Thank you, Said, for the monkey. And thank you, Sadie and LM. I don't think Donald Trump freaked out today because U.S. troops were going to get hurt and he really cares about U.S. troops. I think Trump freaked out today because Bannon told him and said, if U.S. troops get killed, your base is going to turn on you because you said you were against foreign wars. You specifically complained about foreign wars in the Middle East and everything else and criticized Biden for it. And now you're not only getting us into one, but you're getting us into a foreign war. And it's a war where U.S. troops get killed. And that's, I think, why Donald Trump backed out, because he's afraid of pissing off his base if U.S. troops get killed, not because U.S. troops getting killed is to Donald Trump a bad thing. To most presidents, the U.S. troops getting killed would be itself a reason you would have to think, is this worth it? He's thinking about himself, which is classic. Absolutely classic. Again, no president thinks about himself when making a military decision. You do not. You think about the nation. You don't think about yourself. He's thinking about himself. Taco did what he always does. Exactly, sugar. Let's see what happens. Because also, now, Trump is not exactly the most nuanced human being, but I think there could be multiple levels going on. He's a chicken. He's a taco. He's afraid he's going to lose his base if this doesn't go well, if we lose troops, whatever. I think also maybe Iran gave some sign of wanting to negotiate or something. Maybe. And if they did, I'm okay with that, right? Thank adventures. Maybe Iran gave some legitimate signal that they're taking negotiations serious now, right? Thank you, Marsha, for the gift. And if that were the case, I would say hold off on bombing and see how the negotiations go, right? So that's possible. But this article makes clear that that's not the only reason. This article makes clear that Trump is chicken and he's afraid of Iran and he's afraid of how it's going to affect his standing with his base. And this is something he should have known already. Bottom line is, you do not make threats that you're not willing to follow through on. This is a lesson for first. And again, this is not exactly, as I said, you guys don't have to have studied the presidency to know this fact. Don't make threats you're not going to follow through on, right? And what I mean by that, or unless it's a bluff and it's a bluff you're going to win, right? Then it's fine. But you better be sure you're going to win the bluff. Because as a president, you can't afford to lose. And you can't afford for people to know that you bluff and that you don't really mean it when you say military action. Just, oh my God. Having a little more smoothie here and then we're going to continue. Unbelievable. Good point. You don't play poker with the military? All right. Nope, that was gross. I made a smoothie and it erupted all over me right before the show. And it was kind of all over the floor, all over my shirt, all over everything. 1 second here. All right. Okay, we're done. That made me feel better. I am kind of enjoying the comments. I've already gotten, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're a Trumper. I've gotten that a lot the last several days. People can't quite figure it out, which maybe is a good thing. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Phil. Yeah, so there's our boy. There's our boy. Donald may have just tacoed. Now, again, this is Trump. So keep in mind, the taco goes both ways. Trump may have just caved on attacking Iran. In 2 days, he could get a bad case of heartburn or watch Judge Judy, although Judge Judy is now, no, she's not Judge Judy or something. And Judge Judy says we should attack Iran and Trump will decide to attack Iran. I mean, thank you, Randy Fred. Anything, right? I mean, he'll just watch some pretty woman on Fox News and that'll decide whether we go to war. So this is the danger of dealing with someone who doesn't really have principles or ideas, who doesn't really have a belief system. Right? Trump doesn't have a belief system about foreign policy and U.S. military use and when a war is a just war, right? Because of that, his positions can flip. Now, that can be to your advantage. Again, in this case, if you didn't want America going to war, Trump's flip-floppiness, his taco-ness can work to your advantage because now Trump may back off and not go to war. Thank you, Marsha. The problem is he's still a taco, which means 2 days from now, he can flip again. And in 2 days from now, he can change his mind again and go to war. It's an inconsistency that is not, I don't know what to call it. It's just inconsistent. It's flip-flopping. It's not a smart man changes his mind. That's good. It's flip-flopping. He just taco. So taco, I guess we should explain this again, Aileen. Taco is a nickname for Trump that the Wall Street traders came up with. And it stands for Trump always chickens out. The Wall Street traders called him that because he kept flip-flopping on his tariffs. Remember, and this goes back to the beginning, Trump threatened tariffs on Colombia, he caved. He threatened them on Mexico and Canada, and he caved. Then he threatened them on China and everybody. Well, no, then he threatened them on everybody and then backed off. Then China. Then it was 145%. Then he caved. I mean, it's like on every tariff, he went like back and forth. And the Wall Street guys basically said, you can't take Trump at his word. They called him a taco. Trump always caves on Trump always chickens out is what taco means. And again, literally it's a Wall Street. I mean, it's what the Wall Street guys called him, which really matters to him because he likes Wall Street, the New York thing, all of that. Anyway, all right, let me give you more updates on what happened today with the war. Iran struck the Soroka hospital in Israel with ballistic missiles. Iran launched 30 ballistic missiles or so and drones into Israel overnight. Soroka hospital was hit. 89 were wounded. Israel claims Iran used cluster munitions and possibly a MIRVed missile, a warhead that splits towards multiple targets. Israel retaliated within hours with 20 jets hitting missile sites, trucks, and launch facilities in Iran. Strikes also hit major nuclear-linked locations. Israel released footage of the Arak heavy water reactor, saying it was attacked and neutralized, a significant blow to Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Russia issued a warning saying that its personnel were stationed at some of those sites. I think Russia said Bushehr. I'm not sure which one. But Russia said, we've got scientists at some of those sites, technicians, don't hit them. At this point, Israel ought to say, Russia, get your scientists out of those sites. You've got to be kidding me. I mean, Israel is bombing Iran's nuclear facilities, and Russia has scientists at Iran's nuclear facilities. Are they crazy? I mean, the first thing you do is get them out of there. I don't even know what Russia's thinking. So that was kind of interesting out of Russia. Israel declared Khamenei, the Iranian leader, a war target today. Israel's defense minister called him a modern-day H-man, the German leader from World War II, whose name starts with an H. We try not to say it because it upsets TikTok, and named him a legitimate war target. Germany backs Israel's military strikes today. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz publicly endorsed Israel's actions, calling them the world's dirty work, a rare explicit show of European support. In private, he urged restraint and signaled support for renewed diplomacy. Trump is, like we said, well, Trump was weighing an attack, of course, but now Trump may be folding, as we know. And Israel hinted at a ground operation. This was interesting. Israel, as you know, does not have the 30,000-pound bomb that they need to try to take out Iran's premier nuclear enrichment center. So basically, to build a nuclear bomb, you've got to do a lot of different things, including having the nuclear material, the explosive itself. In order for, and I'm not a nuclear expert, but I read. Thank you, Marsha. In order for uranium to be used in a nuclear bomb, it's got to be super duper pure. And you purify it with centrifuges in an enrichment, they call it uranium enrichment, an enrichment facility. And they talk about the percentages, right? 20% enrichment can be for scientific purposes. 90%, oh, thank you, Blue. A little bit of fire on the TikTok gift there. Thank you. 90% enrichment is what you'd like for nuclear bombs. And they use enrichment facilities, centrifuges, the things that spin to enrich the uranium. Well, hang on a second. I'm trying to find my, oh yeah. The premier location that Iran uses for doing the high level enrichment, the really good stuff, the 90%, would be at a place called Fordo. And the Fordo location is the one that's buried in the mountain. It's the one that's so deep, like 300 feet down, 80 to 100 meters down, that it's very difficult, it's impossible for any of our bombs to reach it, except One bomb that the U.S. has. Nobody else has this bomb. Just America. Israel doesn't have it. 30,000-pound bomb. The number, I'm forgetting the number, but it's called the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. It's got a number. Was it GB? Help me out, guys. GBU 38 or something. I'm forgetting the exact number, but it's a massive ordnance penetrator. And the idea is the bomb goes down, digs into the ground, and then blows up. Well, even that bomb can't necessarily go deep enough, but it can create a hole. GBU 59. Are you sure, Tizar? That was close, if that's what it is. GBU 57. You're all giving me different numbers now. You guys crack me up. So the bomb goes down, it drills into the earth, and then blows up. Even then, it doesn't go deep enough, but we would use several bombs. So the first one goes down, blows up, opens up a hole. The second bomb goes into that hole, goes even deeper, opens up, explodes, makes a bigger hole. Thank you, Norway Fox. The third bomb goes through the hole even deeper. That's how it works. Well, Israel doesn't have any of these. Israel has now said, we may have to do it with humans if we can't get America to enter the war. They're talking about the possibility of using special forces or sabotage of some way to actually get to the plant. Now, Israel is pretty good at that. They're pretty good at sneaking people in. So who knows? I mean, look what they did with the pager bombs, right? 5,000 terrorists in Lebanon had pagers go off that exploded. I mean, so you never know with them. I think this is interesting. I did some TikTok videos today that I wrote, so my script up, and I think this is really interesting. I'd like to kind of go through it. Yeah, my pager, exactly. I want to kind of go through this because the first one I did is I thought it'd be interesting. I was like, okay, let's talk about the history of how we even got here. When I say, why did Israel bomb? I mean, what's the whole history of the Islamic, the Islamic Republic or whatever? I'm going to read this to you. This is the script I used for my video, but it still works. Why did Israel bomb Iran last week? The answer goes back over 40 years. In 1979, Iran's Islamic Revolution brought a theocratic dictatorship to power that immediately called for Israel's destruction. Not metaphorically, literally. Iran began funding and arming terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, who then launched attacks directly on Israeli citizens. By the 2000s, Iran was secretly enriching uranium, the key ingredient in a nuclear bomb. That wasn't speculation, it was verified. In 2010, the US and Israel hit back with Stuxnet, a cyber attack that destroyed nearly a fifth of Iran's centrifuges, crippling its ability to make bomb-grade fuel. In 2015, the US and world powers under Obama got together and they signed the Iran nuclear deal with Iran, the JCPOA it's called. The deal required Iran to give up 97% of its uranium and dismantle thousands of centrifuges. The centrifuges are what they use to purify the uranium so they can make a bomb, okay? It didn't end Iran's nuclear ambitions, but it slowed them down significantly. Still, Israel hated the deal, not because it didn't work in the short term, but because the restrictions were temporary. Under the deal's sunset clauses, Iran would be legally allowed to expand enrichment and advanced centrifuge use after 10 to 15 years. That would be 2025 to 2030. Then in 2018, Trump pulls out of the deal entirely, so Iran resumes enrichment almost immediately. I should look and see. I've got a graphic from the Financial Times I want to show you that's pretty wild. It shows how many centrifuges Iran had. I think it's the number of centrifuges. Let me see. If I can find it briefly, I want to find this for you because it's pretty wild. Here we go. The number of installed centrifuges. Blue is actual, pink is planned. Okay? You've got 2011 to 2015 when the deal was signed. These are the number of centrifuges that they can use for nuclear weapons. You see how from 2011, it went up significantly and then it plateaued for several years. The nuclear deal happens and it drops to almost zero. Okay? Not zero, but almost zero. You can't even see it on the chart. Then here is where Trump pulls out of the deal. Look what happened. Look what happens now. These are the centrifuges that are used for making nuclear bombs. So Iran said, screw it, we're going to make a bomb. That's what happened when Trump pulled out of the deal. Let me go on here. So 2018, Trump pulls out of the deal. Iran starts resuming enrichment almost immediately. By 2023, Iran was enriching uranium to 60% purity. dangerously close to the 90% needed for a bomb. And by the way, 60 to 90 sounds like a lot. It's not. The experts say once you get to 60% purity for uranium, it's very easy to get to 90. Okay. The International Atomic Energy Agency reports Iran now has enough enriched uranium for a bomb if it is further processed. So they've got enough uranium. If they process it to 90%, they've got enough for a bomb. U.S. intelligence as of June 2025 says Iran isn't yet putting a final bomb together. This is important. The next section I'm going to read, and trust me, I spent a lot of time writing this because I kept trying to figure out how to say this right. A lot of the critics say, bull, this isn't true. People have been saying for years, for decades even, that Iran was getting ready to build a nuke. And for certainly over a decade, they've been saying Iran is very close to building a nuke. If Iran was very close to building a nuke 15 years ago, why haven't they built it? If that was true, right? If that was true, they would have built it. No, and I wrote this very carefully. So hopefully this explains it well. U.S. intelligence as of June 2025 says Iran isn't yet putting together a final bomb, but Israel isn't reassured. Here's why. Iran's nuclear program is not idle. It is steadily advancing. They're enriching and stockpiling uranium. They're upgrading their centrifuges, and they're improving the missiles they would use to deliver a nuclear weapon. The components are being built for the bomb, but final assembly hasn't happened yet, and that's likely intentional to avoid crossing the line that would trigger an attack from Israel or America. And I said, it's like building a car. The engine, the chassis, and the wiring are all being installed, but they haven't bolted it all together or rolled it off the assembly line, not because they can't, but because they know we're watching. Okay? I said last week, Israel launched airstrikes on Iran's nuclear-linked facilities, seeing the program as dangerously close to the point of no return. Israel calls it self-defense. Critics say the strikes were premature, illegal, and risk igniting a much broader regional war. But here's the question. If we wait for Iran to actually build the bomb or get really close, and it's clear they're working towards doing just that, might it already be too late? And that's the conundrum I see, which is most of us agree that we cannot let Iran get a bomb. The question is, at what point do we give up on negotiations and say the only choice is to try to take it out? So. All right. The other thing is I did one more thing. I did another video, which I think is interesting on Stuxnet. My nephew had recommended doing this. I think it's actually, Rob just said it's a wild story. I did a video on TikTok today about this. I want to read you what I wrote. Stuxnet is the secret cyber attack that the US and Israel did on Iran's nuclear reactors back in like 2010. It was brilliant what they did. A lot of it was revealed in the documents that Edward Snowden released, the classified documents. I just want to read you this because it doesn't, it's not really relevant to whether or not Israel should attack or whether we should attack, but it's a neat story. And it also, well, let me just read this to you real quick. Stuxnet, and this is something I wrote. We've been told for years that Iran is only months away from building a nuclear bomb. But part of the reason it's taking so long for them to build one is because the US and Israel keep sabotaging the program behind the scenes. The most famous example, Stuxnet, a computer virus custom built by the US and Israel to target Iran's nuclear facility at Natanz. Natanz's systems were completely air-gapped, i.e. cut off from the internet to promote hacking. So these systems of theirs were not connected to the internet at all, so Israel and America couldn't get in and hack them, right? So the virus had to be physically smuggled in. Many people think it was likely smuggled in a USB drive. Once inside, Stuxnet hijacked the centrifuges. Remember the centrifuges, if anybody hasn't had chemistry classes or whatever, centrifuge is this device that spins around. You put test tubes in it or whatever tubes, and so you put the tubes in it, it spins around. Actually, it's like the amusement park game to some degree. You know that amusement park thing where you stand against the wall and it spins and the floor drops, but the spin is so strong that you're pressed up against the wall? Centrifuges work the same way. You put a test tube in that has fluid in it and something's in the fluid. You spin really fast, and the gravity or the force, whatever, the force of the spin forces whatever's heavier in the fluid to pull to the bottom. And it's how you separate things out of a fluid, for example. Somehow they use this as well for purifying uranium. So the centrifuge spins around really fast, okay? Once inside, the Stuxnet virus hijacked the centrifuges, Iran's uranium enrichment machines, and made them spin at the wrong speeds. At some points, it would slow them down, and then it would spin them super fast, but super fast. Well, it spun them so fast that they self-destructed. The tubes were going so quickly that they fell apart. Then it fed fake data to the control room so the engineers would think everything was fine. So the computer virus was able to create fake data that said, oh, spinning okay, speed is correct, blah, blah, blah. And while it's spinning out of control, the data is reading, centripetal force, thank you, is reading that everything's okay. Iran lost nearly a fifth of its centrifuges before anyone realized what was happening. At first, they blamed their own people. They fired them, maybe even arrested some of them. Thank you, Succeed, for the wings. No one imagined it was a virus doing the damage. Stuxnet became the first cyber weapon in history to cause physical destruction. So the next time you hear Iran is almost there, remember, Iran would have been there if the US and Israel hadn't kept attacking from the shadows. That's another reason why you will hear people say, what do you mean Iran's almost there? You've been saying for 20 years Iran's almost there. And for 20 years, the US and especially Israel have been blowing up Iran nuclear plants, doing viruses, killing nuclear scientists, doing all sorts of things that keep setting the program back. So, all right, that is it for the news. Let's chat. That gives us a good time. Oh, that's interesting. Solek says Stuxnet also commanded the centrifuges to speed up and slow down harder than they were rated to do, ruining their motors. Okay, I did read that it would go really slow and then really fast, but I wasn't sure why. That's because that also ruins the motor by speeding it up too quickly. Oh, that's interesting. And then once it goes too fast, it's more than the centrifuge can handle and everything breaks. It's so funny. It's so freaking funny. I mean, I'm sorry, you got torque. Oh God, don't get me going on physics here. I hated physics. The whole thing in physics of I'm like, okay, the force is going this way. No, it's not. It's going this way. And I was like, oh my, it reminds me of accounting. Everything's in the wrong column. Everything that's a negative is a positive is a negative. Physics is like the accounting of whatever. Anyway, why does North Korea have nukes and not Iran? Because North Korea got them, and it really sucks that they got them. I would turn the argument around on you and say nobody in their right mind thinks North Korea, that it's a good thing that North Korea has nuclear weapons. So that if you're trying to figure out why would it be bad for Iran to have nuclear weapons, just think of North Korea and whether you think it's a good idea for North Korea to have nukes. That's why. Now, the other thing with North Korea is, part of the problem is North Korea, and we looked into this the other day, actually. North Korea, you got to look at how the Koreas are set up. Seoul, South Korea, which is the capital, is like 20 miles or less, 30 kilometers or less from the border of North Korea. North Korea can obliterate Seoul. Seoul has a huge amount of the population of South Korea. Alexa, what's the population of South Korea? My Alexa's kind of slow, remember? She's a little, we have to work with her. Alexa, what is the population of South Korea?
In 2025, the population of South Korea is 51.7 million.
51 million, 52 million. Alexa, raise your volume. Alexa, what is the population of Seoul, South Korea? She's just an idiot. My Alexa sucks. Alexa, what is the population of Seoul, South Korea?
In 2020, the population of Seoul is 9.61 million people.
Okay, so 10 million people. So you're talking 20% of the population is in Seoul, but it's also 10 million people. And you've got, a nut job, the head of North Korea right on the border. So part of the reason nobody stopped him was because if they went to war to stop him, he would have invaded and wiped out Seoul, 10 million people, very scary. Now, wouldn't have been 10 million people back then, but it would have been millions of people back then. But yeah, I would argue saying that, hey, North Korea's got nukes, so what's the problem? Why can't Iran? Nobody thinks it's a good idea that North Korea has nukes. I would also say Russia having nukes has been a disaster for the world for the last 70 years, right? I mean, Russia, part of the reason Russia got to hold on to Eastern Europe for 45 years and terrorize all you poor people is because they had nuclear weapons, right? Part of the reason Russia got away with invading Ukraine, and we've been helping Ukraine, but we didn't help Ukraine to the degree we needed to. We could have helped Ukraine to a degree that would have pushed Russia out. We didn't do it because Russia has nuclear weapons. So, it's having nuclear weapons, very useful for good people, very useful for bad people. So, I know my Alexa's like talking to a 90-year-old. I should say talking down to a 90-year-old. Can you hear me? Whenever my mom would go to the hospital, she was 93, 94 at the time. I would have to tell the doctor, I'm like, she's very smart. Her hearing sucks, but her mind is there. Don't talk down to her. I said, you've got to speak loudly so she can hear you, but don't you dare talk down to her because she'll rip your head off. Because it's kind of funny with seniors too. You literally see doctors going, so how are we feeling today? You're not so good, huh? And you're like, she's not 6 months, she's not 2 years old. But it is funny. Doctors do that to old people. I think other people do too. But I was like, she's smart. Don't you dare talk down. I said, talk loud, not down. Anyway. All right. What else we got, guys? So what else you want? I mean, we're going to talk about this, but what do you want to talk about? So the Trump stuff is fascinating. Trump may have caved. We don't know. It's also possible to a degree, like I said, that Trump is giving negotiations a chance. I mean, it's possible. The fact that Steve Bannon was there at the White House today is not a good thing because Bannon was simply worried about Trump's political legacy. I'm going to see if I can find, I'm trying to find anything more on this. Yep, I'm not going to find it right now. What else on this? Anybody? Thoughts, ideas? No good people have nukes? Lots of good people. America has nukes. France has nukes. Britain has nukes. India's not bad. Thank you, Janice. I'm not thrilled about Pakistan having nukes. I'm less worried about India. North Korea, very bad. Russia, very bad. China, very bad. Israel, I'm okay because I trust Israel on the nuke thing. Actually, and in Israel's case, the nukes certainly help them in terms of not getting wiped out. But yeah. So there are good countries that have nukes. Yes. I'm trying to see here. What else? I'm looking to see what else I've got in the news. I mean, I went through the news before we started, but yeah, Trump says he will wait 2 weeks before. Well, and the thing is, Trump didn't say he's waiting 2 weeks. He said we're going to see over the next 2 weeks. My suspicion is he also means we're going to see if Iran negotiates in good faith. And if it looks like the negotiations are going anywhere. So like if Iran looks like it's just playing games, I think Trump might go in. The other thing is, I don't think there's a ceasefire involved here. I don't think so. We haven't heard that. This is Trump saying he's not going to go in yet, but Israel is still bombing Iran, which frankly is probably helpful for the negotiations because a ceasefire would put Iran in a position where it simply would say, okay, Israel's not bombing anymore. I can take a breather, right? So yeah, but at least it is a trade-off from the U.S. because the U.S. isn't attacking, which is certainly very helpful. Why are we considered the good people? Because we are the good people. That's what we just talked about, Time Daily. Iran being 2 weeks away from having the bomb. First of all, two different things. And I sort of was looking at this the other day. People that say Iran is 2 weeks away from having the bomb were kind of lying to us. This one kind of pisses me off. What they're talking about is Iran 2 weeks away from getting the nuclear material they need to make a bomb. Then it would probably take them several months to make the bomb. And then it would take them many more months, maybe 6 months to a year, something like that, to make the bomb fit on a missile that they could then fire. Because you got to fire the bomb somehow, right? So they're saying it could be 6 months, it could be a year and a half, it could be 2 years for Iran to literally get the bomb. So I have a problem with the fact that people always use that 2 week thing because it even tricked me. For years, I always heard, oh, they're 2 weeks away. Hablo contigo en español, no puedo. The other people, los otros no van a entender. But so I have a problem with people saying that, with saying, oh, they're 2 weeks away. That was obnoxious. They shouldn't have said that. But as I said earlier in the show, Iran has been steadily trying to get a nuclear bomb, but they've also been holding off because Iran has known for decades that if they build a bomb, they're going to get attacked by the US and they're going to get attacked by Israel and they're going to get stopped. Israel has nuclear weapons. If it was a last resort of Iran gets a nuke or Israel uses a nuke to stop Iran from getting a nuke, I would be willing to put a lot of money on which one's going to happen as a result. Israel is going to stop Iran at all costs because Iran has threatened to wipe Israel off the map. And if Iran gets a bomb, it might. So the issue with people saying for decades that Iran was close to getting a nuke, Iran was close to getting a nuke. They were getting all the parts together, but they weren't assembling them because they knew they would get bombed if they assembled them. But they kept building the parts. They kept enriching the uranium, right? And again, they got put off for years by Obama's deal. They couldn't enrich the uranium for 3 years. Now they started again. So they're building the parts to build the bomb. And if they went whole hog, they could build the bomb in 6 months to a year and a half, 2 years. Not just build a bomb, excuse me. They could launch a bomb in 6 months to like 2 years, depending who you talk to. But it is not, and as I explained earlier, part of the reason Iran has not built the bomb, even though they've been close for years, is they don't want to get blown up by us or the Israelis. The other reason Iran has been stymied, even though they've been so close, is Israel keeps killing the nuclear scientists. Israel keeps blowing up the nuclear plants they need. Israel keeps blowing up the nuclear facilities. We and the Israelis launched a computer virus that took out one of their most important, well, their second most important uranium enrichment facility. So there have been lots of efforts we and the Israelis have done that have made it harder for Iran to advance. Basically, Iran would get, close and then we'd push them back. And then they get close and then we push them back. They got close again, Israel pushed them back. So you couldn't say, well, you just told me 5 times that Iran got close. That means you're lying. No, Iran did get close 5 times and 5 times they got pushed back. So there you go. But they have been, Abedin. They have been. I mean, I compared it in my thing today like building a car. You can be ready to build a car. You can be a car manufacturing plant. You got all the pieces assembled. You're ready to build a car. But you're going to get bombed if you build the car, so you don't build it. But if you start building the car, you could get it done in a day. For example, if you're building a car. But again, if you build the car, you'll get bombed, so you don't do it. But it would be accurate to say you're a day away from building a car. Yes. That's what it is with Iran and the nuclear abilities. They are very close, but they're not just 2 weeks away. They're months away, maybe even a year or two from being able to build a nuke. But we've been pushing them back and Israel's been pushing them back. And they're a very bad country. As I already explained yesterday, the history of Iran, it is a horrific dictatorship. They mistreat their people to a degree unimaginable on this planet. They execute 9-year-old girls for moral crimes. They execute people for being gay. They kill girls. They kill women for showing their hair. Was it Masamini, this woman who was killed 3 years ago that caused all the riots because she had a little bit of her hair showing? They arrested her and killed her. That does not happen. Now, there's some places like Saudi Arabia that get close. Saudi Arabia still isn't as bad as Iran, but it's not great, right? But people who like to say, oh, Iran isn't that bad, or, oh, we in the West are just as bad, not even close for the stuff that they do. It is a brutal, brutal dictatorship. So there. Yeah, they held our hostages, but there's lots of other stuff too. They blew up the Marines. They killed the 241 Marines in Lebanon. They assassinated the man who was going to become the next Lebanese prime minister because they didn't like him. And you can say, oh, the U.S. did that. The U.S. did that 70 years ago. That's part of it too. People like to say, oh, but the U.S. used to do assassinations 70 years ago, right? The U.S. used to overthrow governments 70 years ago. Yeah, we're talking about 2025, not 1953. Hopefully, we've all grown up and matured since then. Anyway, the Iranian people have tried to rise up. I am not necessarily the expert on the Iranian history, but Iranians have tried to rise up just like the Russians have, and they get stamped on because it's a dictatorship. I mean, when Massamini got killed a couple of years or 3 years ago, 2022, I think it was, there was like, remember, women were walking around with their hair publicly. People were marching on the streets. They were destroying, the cars of the secret police and stuff. And the government cracked down and arrested everybody and killed a lot of them. I mean, so all of a sudden people go, right? What do you do? So it's not, it's like the Russian thing. People rise up occasionally. They rose up in Russia in like 2011 or so, but you're rising up against a dictatorship that's very good at oppressing people and killing people. It's very, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a really interesting expert. I would love to talk to somebody who's an expert on revolutions, right? Who basically can explain, like, when is it, for 45 years, the Eastern Europe lived under Soviet dictatorships imposed by the Soviet Union in Eastern Europe for 45 years. And then they didn't. They overthrew them. Why after 45 years? We know historically changed Gorbachev, et cetera, but like literally, what's the formula? What's the tipping point, right? Where suddenly you can go from you're comfortably in power and then you're not. Syria, comfortably in power for 50 years and then boom, he gets overthrown. No one thought he could get overthrown. He got overthrown, right? And what is it that makes you go from the Syrian dictator where he's comfortable for 50 years to boom, he's not anymore? Vilnius poker, what is that? But I really do. I'm really curious as to sort of an analysis from somebody who's an expert on revolutions overall as to what the commonality might be. You know what I mean? Of when you go from impossible to overthrow the dictator to inevitable to overthrow the dictator. It's really interesting. So anyway, does it sound any different from what the states are doing? We haven't killed any gay people. We don't kill women. We don't kill women for wearing their hair in curlers. We don't kill 9-year-old girls for moral crimes. So for starters, we don't do any of that. We haven't assassinated any heads of state in a very long time. Certainly nobody who didn't deserve it. Trans people, they're not being executed by the federal government. So, yep. Now, again, some of you are confusing, and maybe this is understandable, but you're confusing America is not pure with America is the same thing as a government that executes gay people and women and children. A little different, right? You can be imperfect and not be somebody who literally a government that slaughters gays and children and women for wearing their hair out, right? There's a difference. Because we're adults, we can discern the difference, right? You can criticize America, but just because you criticize America for not being perfect, or Donald Trump for being even worse than not perfect, right? That doesn't mean that Trump is equal to Iran. He's not. He's not. I think he's bad. He's very bad, but he's not Iran. There's a big difference with what they're doing. So, and the other thing too is, and this is something in general, I also find it with, and we've discussed this before. A lot of people try to do this too. What I think people really do, which is very bad, when they try to say, "Oh, what about America? Oh, what about Israel and Gaza?" What you're actually doing is making excuses for evil. You're making excuses for the Iranians killing Mahsa Amini when you say, "Oh, Israel does bad things too," or America does bad things. So you're saying it's okay when Iran does? You're saying it's okay they do this to children? You're saying it's okay to execute gays? It's not okay. And when you make up excuses, you do. And that's a whole other problem I have with this. I just think okay, dog wants water. We're getting the dog water and we'll continue. One moment. All right, you. All right. It's called whataboutism, and it's well established. Whataboutism is the way you basically make excuses for bad people, right? Donald Trump did this. Well, what about Biden? No, we're talking about Donald Trump doing a bad thing. Do you think it's okay or not okay to do a bad thing? Just because Biden did it, right, doesn't make it a good thing, right? Anyway. I don't know who you are, Viola, but you're about to be banned. You're here to warn me I'm here to tell you, if you don't clarify that very quickly, the mods are going to ban you and report you to TikTok in 2 seconds, because that sounds like a threat of violence. So what are you talking about? And normally I wouldn't say that publicly, but you better explain yourself fast. Like, mods, give her one chance. Okay, thank you. I don't, maybe you didn't mean what you said, but that was really creepy. So, all right. That's why I asked, because I was thinking maybe that's okay. Fine. All right. Okay. All right. That's fine. Then mods, leave her alone. No, because I saw that and I went, what the hell was that? Like, all right. All right. No, because we get a lot of crazies that come here too. So, okay. That's okay. Sorry. You're not a native English speaker. That's okay. That's okay. No, we get a lot of really bad people who come and they threaten and everything else. So that's why we kind of have to keep our eyes open. So no, it's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. Now I feel bad because you're not a native English speaker. Okay, never mind. Yeah, it's just so you know, that sounds like a threat when you say it that way. If you were an English speaker, it would be like, okay, all right, thank you. Sorry. Anyway, change topic. I agree. No. I agree. No dictator is okay. I'm with you on that. And again, I'm not going to defend. I am the last person to defend Donald Trump. That is not going to happen on this show. Definitely not going to defend Donald Trump ever. So no fear there. But I do think there's sort of like I said, with this Iran thing, a lot of people are trying to use Israel as justification for Iran, A, Iran's crimes overall, but B, Iran getting nuclear weapons, because Israel's the ones attacking. I mean, Israel can be doing bad things in Gaza and still be right about Iran. It doesn't mean they're right, but they could be right. It has nothing to do with Gaza. They could be committing war crimes in Gaza. That's irrelevant in terms of trying to decide, is it okay, or is Iran not trying to get a nuclear weapon? And is it dangerous or is it not dangerous for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, right? It doesn't matter what Israel's doing in Gaza to make that determination. No, that's true. I see what you mean. Yeah, LM raised a good point. That people see Israel attacking all over and they're worried. Fair enough, right? Because they sort of see Israel attacking Gaza, and then they see Iran, and they think, oh, maybe this is just a crazy person attacking, and there isn't any justification. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's not true, but fair enough. With as I said, with Iran, and this is where, again, I've said it in sort of the things I've done on TikTok and what I've told with you guys. The thing with Iran is Israel jumped the gun. Israel went too fast. Israel, there was no reason to invade, or I should say to attack Iran yet. We were still negotiating. The negotiations had gone on a long time, right? Trump had given a 60-day deadline for the negotiations. We had already met the 60 days. We'd already been at day 61 or something, I think, when Israel attacked. But they were still negotiating. They still were having the negotiations on Sunday. Israel attacks like Friday morning Israel time. 2 days later, 3 days later, 2 days later, they were still negotiating. So Israel jumped the gun. You could also argue it's possible that Israel did it to stop the negotiations. I mean, I saw, and I'm happy to say it's possible. I saw one story or one explanation that Iran was considering some American proposal, was offering a counter proposal, and Israel didn't like that they were getting close, and that's what they attacked. It's certainly possible. No, I mean, it is. I like Israel. I don't trust Netanyahu. The guy that runs Israel right now, I think, is a bad guy. He is. Israel is not a bad country. Their leaders are generally not bad people. Netanyahu is. Sharon, the guy before him, one of the guys before him, was too. A lot of their leaders are good people. Also, it's a country that people have been trying to kill for 3,000 years. It's a country that all of its neighbors, up until recently, have been trying to wipe off the map for 75 years, 80 years. That makes you very intolerant, basically. If you're Israel, and I really do, and I think my generation maybe is a little more sympathetic because we grew up with all of this. I always say this, and I think it's relevant. A lot of you guys grew up where your formative years, the years you were paying attention because you were like an adult or whatever, you watched the Palestinians getting attacked by the Israelis, right? Sort of the years you came of age, for a lot of you maybe, was the year 2000 to today, 25 years. Well, during most of that time, Israel was beating up the Palestinians. I came of age in the 1970s and 1980s. Well, during that time, guess what was happening? The Palestinians were killing everybody. They were blowing up Israelis. They were blowing up Americans. They were blowing up planes, passenger planes. They were stealing cruise ships and murdering elderly people on cruise. They took one guy, Leon Klinghoffer, some old guy in a wheelchair, and they threw him overboard into the water. So but my point is that depending when you come at this, you learn different things. Each of us is learning the truth. The Olympics. Oh my God, how did I forget the Olympics? Neil, the 1973 Olympics, the Palestinians kidnapped the entire Israeli Olympic team and murdered them. So, that's why I say this issue is very complicated. The hate is very complicated. Americans will appreciate, maybe younger Americans wouldn't know this, but it's the Hatfields and the McCoys. It's the, you killed my uncle, so I killed your brother, so you killed my grandson, so I killed your mother, so you killed my brother, so I killed your sister. And each of us says, yeah, but he did this, but he did this, but he did this, but he did this. That's what you've got now with the Israelis and the Palestinians. And again, look at Israel. Look at Israel now. But having said that, this is where I say, and again, I am somewhat sympathetic. I'm sympathetic to the Palestinians too. I think they've gotten a raw deal, but and they've also had really shitty governments and shitty leaderships. The Palestinians voted for Hamas, dumb mistake, and they've had a dictator, a terrorist group as their government now for 17 years or 18 years or 19 years now, which is terrible. But they voted for him, which was stupid, but now they're stuck with it, which is bad, right? They had the PLO, Yasser Arafat, who basically, Yasser Arafat at one point cut a deal and then later on didn't want to cut a deal. So I think they've had governments that were too hard line, that didn't want to reach deals with the Israelis. Under Clinton, they had a number of deals. They could have gotten a state. The Palestinians would have had a country at this point. But their leadership was so hard-nosed they didn't want to. And now Israel's got the hard-nosed leadership now. Just like the Palestinians had it before, and they have it now with Hamas, certainly, the Israelis have got it with Netanyahu. That's what I'm saying. It's an incredibly complicated issue. And that's why I get annoyed with people that are like, Israel's bad and the Palestinians are good. No, both of them have done bad things. Both of them also, I will say, both of them have justifications for doing bad things, which is also what's complicated, right? Yeah. No, it is. It's very complicated. Anyway, thank you for the crabs there, Janice. 1972, I'm sorry, the 73s. Right. The Olympics would have been in an even year anyway. Right. It wouldn't have been in an odd year. Right. But no, I've not been to Israel. Well, Israel's funny. You Israelis crack me up. I've met a number of Israelis. One of them was very nice. Several of them were a little abrupt. Israelis, somebody made a joke once about the Israelis. I'm forgetting what it was. It was like the politesse of a German mixed with something else. I don't know what it was, but it's very true. Israelis are like, I met my friend's sister has lived in Israel forever. So she's basically an Israeli now. She comes to visit, one of my best friends. She comes to visit and she meets my dog and she goes, oh, you have a dog. No, imagine, again, to me, it's like meeting Germans, really. She gets down and she says hi to my dog and she goes, your dog smells. And I looked at her and I was like, oh, okay. I said, well, she just had a bath. Yes, but she smells. I was like, okay. To me, that's Israeli. That is like classic Israeli. The very direct people. The other Israeli thing that made me laugh was I was kind of pissed. I got invited several years ago. I had one of the top political blogs in the US, and I got invited several years ago to go on a free trip to Tel Aviv and Israel to see Israel. I think maybe they take you to the West Bank, whatever, and a free trip. And I would get to go to Tel Aviv Pride, gay pride or LGBT pride in Tel Aviv, which would have been really cool. And they tell me I'm going, and it's like 2 months from the trip. And I get an email from the Israeli tourist ministry or whatever saying, oh, you are no longer going on the trip. And it says, unfortunately, things changed. We had to make the trip smaller. And we could only invite, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, we could only invite people who were more important. So we're not inviting you. And I was like, and I wrote them, and I literally wrote them back. And I said, okay, I've been pretty supportive of you guys. I can appreciate if the trip is smaller and I don't make the cut. Don't write to people and say you weren't invited because you were disinvited because you're not important enough. I said, that kind of stuff doesn't really fly. And maybe that works in Israel. In other countries, that shit doesn't fly. You piss people off, and the whole point of this was not to piss me off. So I almost went to Israel until Israel fucked me over. so you know, I told you, but I do have I can tell the story again. I do have my my Yitzhak Rabin story though. I've told this before, but I'll tell it again. In 1993 or so, Yitzhak Rabin was prime minister. He's the prime minister of Israel who was assassinated, help me out here, 1995, 1996. Nice man. He comes to the United States and he meets with members of Congress. I was working for a United States Senator at the time, Ted Stevens. I was a Republican back then, Republican senator, and my senator was the head of defense appropriations. So he was in charge of the defense money in the U.S. Senate. Very important to Israel, of course, right? Very important. So we have a meeting in the Senate, in the actual Capitol building itself, not in our office, and we take one of the rooms. And the rooms are very pretty, they're very ornate, but they're not very big. So it's kind of a small room. I mean, almost like smaller than my living room behind me, right? Like smaller than this. And there's like maybe 20 of us in the room. My senator, Yitzhak Rabin. I'm the only staffer with my boss. Rabin must have 15 people there, right? I'm sure there's a lot of security too, but 15 people. So I'm standing by the door. Rabin is over there on like a chair. My boss is on a couch. And there's a table here. So Rabin is on a little stool, actually. It almost looks like, imagine a piano bench, but it's only this big. So he's sitting on this bench, and my boss is on the couch next. Rabin's here, my boss is here. So I'm on the wall looking at him, and Rabin says, "Oh, and his accent was incomprehensible." I couldn't understand not a thing, but most of what this guy said, I could not understand. My boss was understanding him, forget it. So he goes, "Oh, don't you have staff here?" Or so, I can't do an Israeli accent. "Don't you have staff?" And he goes, "Oh, that's John by the door there." And I said, "Oh, hi, Mr. Prime Minister." "Oh, come sit." I said, No, Mr. Prime Minister, it's fine. And first of all, Americans anyway, like you're taught to say no anyway, but also he's the freaking head of Israel and my boss. I'm not supposed to be part of this discussion, right? So I said, no, it's fine. No, I insist, sit. I said, "No, Mr. Prime Minister." And he goes, "Sit." And I said, "There's nowhere to sit anyway. It's fine." Because literally there were only a couple seats. He had one, my boss had the couch. And I said, "It's fine." And he looks around and he sees, now my boss was an asshole. Ted Stevens was a total asshole. So my boss is already looking at me going like, "Why are we talking about you?" Right? I mean, in his head, I know that's what he's saying. So Rabin looks around the room and he sees, this is the Prime Minister of Israel. He sees that there are no seats around the room. So he looks and he's sitting on a bench that is literally this wide. It fits his butt. He goes like this and he's on the bench now. He scoots over and he goes like this on the bench. And he pats the bench. He moves his butt halfway off the bench and then pats the bench and says, "Come, sit." And I look and he goes, "Sit." And I believe he said, "We're not starting the meeting until you sit." And I mean, first of all, my boss was an asshole. So like I said, I know I'm dead at this point because my boss was such an ass. So I walked over. I sit next to him, and I mean, this bench wasn't big enough for two people. So I've got my ass next to Rabin's ass and shoulder to shoulder. And the room, of course, is filled with his staff security and my boss, who's now sitting there on the couch next to us, just looking at me. And I mean, literally just looking at me. And I'm looking for you guys just like this. And I'm kind of like, what the hell am I supposed to do? But very interesting. I mean, it's funny. The Israelis, we had last time some Israelis with us that were in the audience, and they said, "Oh, that's such an Israeli thing to do." So, I mean, it's very funny. And let me throw this in as well. A United States senator would not have done that. a United States senator would have been like, fuck you. U.S. senator doesn't care where you sit. Most of them don't. They're not going to, there's no way in hell they're going to say, we're not stopping the meeting until your staffer gets to sit. Oh, please. That's not going to happen. That was very interesting to me because it really is. It's one window into the man, but it was very, you just in Washington, powerful people don't tend to care about people that are beneath them, basically. So it was very interesting. But I loved it though. And then as he's talking, I couldn't even tell you what the meeting was about because I couldn't understand a thing he said. My boss understood him. I didn't understand him, but it was pretty. And then he was killed like 2 or 3 years later. They assassinated him by a far right nut job. So, oh man. Yeah, exactly. And then The Office, the idiot American that took the seat. It's like exactly Red Shirt Day. It was a great story. Oh my God. Amanda says her aunt immigrated to Israel like 20 years ago, and now she feels like an anti-Canadian with all the bluntness. Yeah, I mean, how did I react to his association? I'm not sure what you mean. I know that probably didn't translate well, but I'm not sure. My boss didn't say anything afterwards, which was good. I was expecting him to, but he didn't. So that was good. But yeah, he was assassinated a couple years later by a guy on the far right. That's okay. No, that's okay. Don't worry, Feminine. It's all right. Anyway. Oh, to the assassination. I mean, it was, again, I don't necessarily know Israeli politics, but he seemed like a good man. You know what I mean? And especially, what I mean is politically, he seemed like a good man. And again, when I look at Netanyahu, my boss was a great senator. Ted Stevens was a great senator for Alaska. He was very honest. He had like the scandal that came up. And then thank you, Ellie, for subscribing. Oh, by the way, follow me on TikTok. I keep forgetting to tell people, and keep some more gifts coming if you can help it. I would appreciate it. The gifts help pay the bills, so do keep the gifts coming. But Stevens was an amazing senator. He was accused of corruption and prosecuted, and then after he died, they realized the prosecutors basically cheated, and all the charges got thrown out because the prosecutors broke the law, basically. Which was unfortunate. The Bridge to Nowhere, ironically, was my program, except I refused to do it. There's it wasn't really a bridge to nowhere. It really wasn't. It was the problem is it was like $100 to $200 million bridge. And I couldn't justify it with everything else we were trying to do for the state. It was too much money for one village. It's a long story. And once I left the office, another guy in the office picked it up and did it. And it became a super famous example of bad spending, but it actually wasn't really pork. It's a village in Alaska that doesn't have access. And unfortunately, roads are expensive. I mean, visiting Israel to do with the average Alaskans. He wasn't visiting Israel, but he was meeting with the Israeli premier, the Israeli leader, because he's in charge of defense appropriations. So he was in charge of defense spending in Congress, so to speak. I've never met Netanyahu. Netanyahu was a very impressive man in the 1980s. He was Israel's United Nations ambassador. Very impressive in the 1980s. But again, all of this stuff wasn't there. Again, I think he's a warmonger. I mean, that's the term I use. Americans understand it. Thank you for the gift, Tiptoe. For people who aren't American or who aren't Anglophones, a warmonger is somebody who almost has a craving for war, right? They never think negotiation. They never think of negotiations because they think negotiations are weak. They think any kind of compromise is bad, and they want war. And I think Netanyahu thinks Palestinians should never have a state, and I think therefore he doesn't want negotiations on anything. He doesn't want compromise on anything. Like Putin in some ways, yeah. Always itching for a fight, but it's always itching for a fight because you don't believe in negotiation because you don't believe in compromise. Now, again, this is why I say, I think he goes way too far. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Juhadi. But the name I probably shouldn't have said. Thank you, Jeremy. the thing you've got to understand, though, with Israelis, though, I mean, he goes too far. But, people have been trying to kill. I was saying this before, and I thought I got off topic. People have been trying to kill the Jews for 3,000 years. Then they go through the Holocaust. And some people are like, oh, I'm tired of hearing about the Holocaust. Well, 2/3 of Europe's Jews were killed. Imagine 2/3 of your entire population killed. 2/5 of the world's Jews were killed in the Holocaust. Of all the Jews in the world, 2/5, 2/5 were killed. When that happens after 3,000 years of people trying to kill you, you kind of say enough. Either you get crushed and destroyed, and you just try to assimilate, and you dissolve. You join every other country, and you say that's it, right? Or if you're a strong people, so in other words, either the experience destroys you or the experience hardens you, and you say that's it, never again. And you become a hard ass, and anytime someone threatens you, you chop their head off. And anytime someone hits you, you hit them back 10 times harder. Israel was famous for hitting back 10 times. I mean, not God, I'm talking 50 years ago. Israel, there would be a terrorist attack, and Israel would hit back 10 times harder. The rest of us, like America, we're always looking like, Iran throws a missile at our troops. We throw a missile at the Iranian, surrogate's office or something. It's always like tit for tat. Israel, historically, if you shot a missile at their troops, they're going to blow up your palace. I mean, it literally is going to be 10 to 100 times, because the point was, you're going to learn a lesson never to touch them. For me, that's my formative experience in learning about Israel as a young person and coming of age now. And that colors my impression. I'm going to go soon because we're still protecting my voice, but that colors my interpretation of Gaza, because you are watching people who have spent not just a lifetime, but hundreds of lifetimes having people kill them. And they have learned, and they're a small country. They're only, 7 million people? They're a small country. Not only are they small, I don't have a European map, a Middle Eastern map. They're small in numbers, but they're also in the Middle East. They're this big. They're literally like this big. You see Saudi Arabia is like this big. Israel's like this. They're very small. And therefore, when they get attacked, they hit you 10 to 100 times harder so that you'll never be able to hit them again. And now Gaza, look what happened on October 7th. But again, somebody didn't just commit a terrorist act. The worst terrorist act in the history of Israel happened on October 7th. They took over 1,000 people. They killed over 1,000 people. They took hundreds of hostages. In a country of 7 million, that's huge. And they responded by saying, that's it, it's war. I think they went too far, 9 million, okay. But at the same time, this isn't just any old country. This isn't just any old people. And it's not like, oh, somebody bombed a restaurant, which is very bad, by the way. But it's not like, oh, somebody bombed a restaurant. It's like somebody bombing 100 restaurants. Thank you, Rob. It's like somebody bombing 100 restaurants. And it's people who learned that if you don't chop off the head of threats immediately, they will wipe you out, and they will wipe out your people and wipe out your country. That, anyway, it's, as I said, to me, it is a very complicated issue. And I think it's a little too easy to say, for example, too, I think I am going to have to go because I got to preserve my voice. I think most of our countries would have done what Israel did. I think we would. If I had calculated what it was for Americans and like how many 9/11s, and based on the population size, and I want to say it was something like 30 or 40,000 people killed. We could do the math. What is it, 9 million now, you guys said? 9 million Israelis. Let's just for fun. Hold on a second. Let me just do a calculation here. So America's 330 million people, maybe a little more. Oops, let me try this. So 300. Okay, sorry, I've got a nasty little, come on. I keep using the wrong, I keep forgetting my calculator. I've got to delete the calculator I've got on my iPad because it's a pay calculator. It's pissing me off. Is it this one I want? All right, let's do this. So 330 million people divided by, let's say, 9 million Israelis. Oops. Okay. That's, equals 36. So that times 3,000. No, that can't be it. That can't be it. That's too much. That's too much. You said 9 million Israelis? Is it 1 in 30? Divided by, Sasha, stop. 9 million. Yeah, it's 33. So 33. Imagine 33 times 9/11, where we lost 3,000 people. That would be losing 100,000 people. Well, no, they didn't lose. I'm sorry. No. Sorry about that. They'd lose 33,000 people. I'm sorry. 33,000. 33 times. They lost 1,000 people, a little over 1,000. It'd be like losing 33,000 people. Imagine that 9/11. By the way, look what we did after 9/11. Okay. We started a 20-year war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay. Imagine if instead of 3,000 people, we lost 33,000 people on 9/11. I mean, I can't imagine what we would have done if that was the case. That it would have been far worse, whatever we did. And by the way, the French, let me tell you, I know France. Let me tell you what France would have done. Britain probably would have too, but France, a number of countries would have destroyed any country, any region, any people who did that. They would have destroyed them. And it doesn't mean that's a good thing, but it is logical, it is expected, and it is not surprising. And as I said, the problem is everybody else would have done the exact same thing the Israelis did. And that's what bothers me too. I think it's hypocritical because I think Israel went too far, but I also think every single critic of Israel would have gone just as far. It's human nature, but it's also natural to some degree as well. It's not just human nature. If 33,000 Americans were killed in one day, and they took 240 prisoners times 30, is that actually 240? Yeah, is going to be 6,000, 7,000 kidnaps, 7,000 hostages, 7,000 hostages. And we knew. I actually compared it to Mexico. And it was Mexico, right? Pretend it was Mexico. So we know the country who did it. We know the people are there. Even better, Mexico City. Because, right, Mexico's big, Gaza's small. You know they're in Mexico City. And you know it's the leadership of Mexico City that did it. And you know they're there. You're going to say, well, we really need to be careful we don't hurt the Mexicans. You're not. Doesn't make it right. But I think anybody who says they wouldn't have done the same thing the Israelis did is not telling the truth. Yeah. No, I really mean it. And that's why, like I said, on pretty much, Sasha, I know, just wait. Pretty much every issue in the Middle East that comes up, I mean, Iran is a little different, but every issue in the Middle East that comes up, it's usually very, very complicated. So, all right, I'm going to go, guys, because we are trying to protect my voice. Thank you for reminding me there. Oh, hey, Marion. Marion's just coming in. I mentioned you again. I told your Madeleine Albright story again the other day with Seth Tillman. You'll have to give me the details again so I get it right next time. All right, guys, have a good night. I will see you all tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. And then Saturday, we've got our weekend show. Let me Discord. Sasha, oh my God, stop. I'm not supposed to raise the voice, but she's doing her whining I want food thing, and she's driving me insane. All right, goodbye, Discord. Dear God, dog. No, as she's getting older, she's getting whinier, and it's really annoying me. I don't know if you can hear it. Like for the last 15 minutes, she's just going because she wants me to give her a treat. And it's like, akuseki. Like, it's like little, all right. Good night, YouTube. See you guys tomorrow. All right. All right, you guys. She's